Today we're talking about the top 3 motorcycles I want to ride this year in 2022. And guess what? Not one of them is a Harley Davidson. All right, everybody, what is going on? As always, thanks for stopping by to another video today. As I mentioned, today we're going to talk about the top 3 motorcycles that I want to ride this year in 2022. And like I said, might be a little bit surprising, not one of them that I want to ride this year or that I'm interested in riding is a Harley Davidson. Obviously, the majority of my interest and the majority of my content is Harley stuff. That's just where I like to ride. I think they have the best look. I love the looks of them. I love riding them. I love the Harley experience. But obviously, there is a lot of other great brands out there that I'm really looking to dive into this year in 2022, really to kind of broaden and expand my experience in motorcycles and really get on some different brands, different styles of bikes. Really try to stretch out of the cruiser segment this year because that is a lot of what I ride. Obviously, that's the majority of Harleys is cruisers. So what I want to do is I want to get on different styles of bikes this year. I want to try to expand upon my experiences of riding those different styles, whether it's larger cruisers or naked sport bikes, anything like that. I really want to try to dive into some of those different varieties and categories of bikes to really kind of broaden my horizons and experiences so far with all these different types of bikes out there to ride. Now, last year was pretty awesome. I did have the opportunity to ride a ton of different bikes last year, but again, most of those were Harleys. So if you think about all the different bikes I was able to ride last year, I was able to get on the Livewire, the FXDR, the Road King, Lowrider S's, both Dyna and Softail. I was also lucky enough to get on an Indian Scout last year, so that was one of my goals for last year, was really try to broaden my horizons off of the Sportster, get into some different styles of bikes, even though they were all Harleys, and give some of those a look. And this year, I want to kind of take that to the next level, get more into some of those different brands, some of those different categories, and some of those different available bikes out there that can really kind of enhance the motorcycling experience, get a little bit different from that cruiser category that I'm so interested in right now. I'll always kind of be a little bit of a cruiser guy, I would say, but I really kind of want to get out there into some of those different varieties to really kind of learn more and experience more of those bikes. So I'm going to run through my list of the top 3 that I really want to get on this year in 2022. And before we get started, make sure you drop the bikes that you're interested in getting in on this year, because I want to know from you guys what you want to ride this year in 2022, whether it's something you've never been on, something new that's coming out. Make sure you drop it down there in the comments. And if you have been on any of the bikes that I'm about to mention here, make sure you let me know that you've been on that and what your experience was like. So I'm going to count these down from 3 to 1, and 1 is going to be the one that I'm most interested in and absolutely 100% got to get on this year, so make sure you stay tuned for that one. So we're going to kick it off with number 3 right now, and that's going to be the Indian Chief Bobber. So the Indian Chief Bobber came out last year in 2021 with that totally new look and redesign. There was a lot of hype and fanfare when it came out. It's a beautiful, gorgeous looking machine right there. And like I said, being that I'm kind of a cruiser guy, this one should kind of come as no surprise. I definitely want to get in on the Indian Chief Bobber this year. It looks like just an absolute blast to ride. The styling is amazing, and I definitely want to have an opportunity to get on a Chief Bobber this year. So the Chief Bobber has the Thunderstroke 116 engine from Indian. I'm very curious how that performs. I would love to give that a go. It's putting out about 90 horsepower and 120 foot-pounds of torque in about a 690-pound bike. So it's no secret that that bike, when it came out, was really kind of a direct competitor at the Lowrider S, or the kind of the Softail line of the Harleys. So the Street Bobs, the Lowrider S, kind of a direct competitor right there. Very similar in engine size, very similar in weight, shape, form, and function. No surprise there. So that's one of the really main reasons that I want to give this a bike a shot in 2022, is because I've been on the Lowrider S. So I want to be able to kind of make that comparison between those two, between the Chief Bobber and the Lowrider S, kind of compare my experiences, the function, the power, the handling, all of those details in that very similar bike. I really want to get on that bike this year and kind of put those to the test and be able to make my own judgments and comparisons to the Softail line when you think about the Street Bob or the Lowrider S, and then taking that into that competitor of the Chief Bobber. I definitely want to see how that Thunderstroke 116 compares to the M8. Obviously the 114 being in the Lowrider S. Very similar engines there, kind of putting out similar specs, similar numbers. Definitely curious to see how those two can compare to each other, and I really would love to get that opportunity to hop on the Chief Bobber this year. Another aspect that was super hyped up on the Chief Bobber when it came out last year was that new digital gauge. That's another thing I'd like to take a look at, is how that gauge performs and functions while riding the Chief Bobber. So that gets us started with number 3. We're going to take it into number 2 now, and I even surprised myself with this one because of some of the preconceived notions that I have on this bike. I've actually never really been a huge fan of this bike, but for some reason, when it came out last year in 2021, I was a little bit interested in it, and I definitely want to hop on it this year to see how it performs and kind of make my own opinions on it. And coming in at number 2 is the Honda Rebel 1100. So when I say that I had some preconceived notions, it's because I've never really been a big fan of the Rebel. When you think about the 300 and the 500, I've never been a huge fan of those bikes, and I'm simply just judging that like a book based on its cover because I've never ridden one. Like I said, when I think about that, I'm just looking at it specifically purely from a look standpoint. I've never been a fan of the looks of that bike for some reason. I know that's a subjective opinion. Everybody has their own opinion on looks, of course, but I've just never really been a huge fan of that bike. I know that's me judging a book by its cover. You really never know what a bike is going to be like, obviously, until you hop on it, throw a leg over it, take it for a spin. So that's why I really want to ride the Honda Rebel 1100 this year, see how that bike performs, and see if I can overcome some of those preconceived notions I have on it, based specifically just on the looks. So, of course, the Honda Rebel 1100 has the 1089cc liquid-cooled engine, putting out about 81 horsepower and 67 foot-pounds of torque. The bike also weighs about 489 pounds. So with that power to rate ratio, I think that would actually have some pretty good performance, a little bit more than my Sportster, obviously. And that's another one of the main reasons that I would really love to try the Honda Rebel 1100 this year, is because I want to give it that comparison to my Sportster. And I know one of the things here when you think about comparing those two bikes, it is a liquid-cooled engine versus an air-cooled engine. The performance of the Rebel 1100 is obviously going to outshine the Sportster. There's no way around it. There's more power, it's got similar torque, and the bike is just overall lighter. So when you think about the Sportster, my Iron 1200, you're looking at an air-cooled engine, 1200 cc's, probably somewhere around 60, 65 horsepower, 60, 65 foot-pounds of torque. So from a performance perspective, you can pretty much guarantee that it's going to outperform the Sportster. But the reason that I want to be able to ride that bike and do that little comparison is I just want to see how that bike feels in comparison to my Sportster, to see if it can give me some of that same kind of excitement and level of enjoyment while riding it as my Sportster does. Like I said, I know it's going to have a little bit better performance from the engine and the way that's concerned, but I just want to see what the experience is like from the Sportster to the 1100, because like I said, the power to weight ratio is there. It is more powerful than the Sportster, and it weighs a little bit less. So that's got a benefit going for it right there. So for those two reasons, that's why the Honda Rebel 1100 comes in at number 2, because I want to see if actually riding this bike can change my opinion on it, which I have a feeling it probably would. And I also want to see if I can make that comparison to my Sportster as well. Like I said, those are the two main reasons that I'm hoping that I can get a chance to hop on this bike this year. So those are the first two, with the Indian Chief Bobber coming in at number 3, the Honda Rebel 1100 coming in at number 2, and coming in at number 1, I even surprised myself a little bit with this one here. Also, some of you out there might be surprised as well. Coming in at number 1, give me a drum roll, the Triumph Trident 660. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you guys know me as pretty much a cruiser guy, and that's what I wanted to start to expand out some of my experience into those different styles of bikes. The Triumph Trident is really kind of falling into that lightweight, upright, naked sports bike type of category. And I've never really been too much into those types of bikes. Just the look, the style, I was never super into them. But when I saw the Triumph Trident released and I was watching videos and reading about it, there's just something about the look and the setup of this bike that I'm just a huge fan of. And I've been obsessed with this bike ever since it came out. I've seen it in person. I've sat on one. I have not ridden one yet, but like I said, that's going to be the plan for this year. I definitely want to get on a Triumph Trident 660. There's just something about the short, stout, compact look of this bike that I'm just such a huge fan of. And when you think of the numbers and the specs on this bike with the 600cc liquid-cooled engine, putting out about 80 horsepower, 47 foot-pounds of torque, and that's only on a 417-pound bike. So this thing looks like an absolute blast to ride from everything that I've seen about it so far. and some of the reviews that I've heard on it. So one of the biggest reasons that this is my #1 bike that I want to get on this year in 2022 is the fact that, like I said, it's such a short, compact performance machine type of bike. I want to see how this bike handles and rides around the city of Philadelphia. So obviously you guys know I live here in Philly. I'm always riding around the city. A lot of my riding videos, you're typically seeing me at stoplights, stop signs, traffic, cutting in and out, all this stuff. I think this would be an amazing bike to have right down in center city, because the quick zip of that 80 horsepower on such a light bike, you're going to be kind of able to duck and dive, juke and jive in and around traffic as much as you want to. And that's one of the things that I really want to see about this bike, is I really want to see kind of that function and the handling, the quickness, the zip. I think it would be an absolutely amazing bike to ride. It seems like it would perform really well out there on Kelly Drive as well, zipping around some of those twists and turns. Also efficiently getting around the city, if you need to lane split a little bit, we're ducking and diving around here, all that different stuff to quickly and efficiently get around the city. So that rounds out my top 3 bikes that I'm really hoping to get on this year. Make sure you stay tuned to the channel, see if I get on any of those throughout the year, into the spring or summer. If anybody out there is riding any of those and wants to let me take them for a test ride, hey, let's see what we can do. But no, for real though, the top 3, and a quick recap of those. Remember, we've got the Chief Bobber at 3, Honda Rebel 1100 at 2, and the Triumph Trident 660 at #1, the #1 bike that I want to ride this year. Hopefully I get a chance to ride all 3. So like I said at the beginning, what are the top bikes that you're looking forward to possibly getting on? This could be any bike you haven't ridden before. It could be a brand new bike that's coming out. Drop it down there in the comments. Let me know what your top bikes are you're hoping to get on, or if you've ever been on some of those that I mentioned, let me know your thoughts on those down in the comments. Let me know what your experience was like, and if you think I would like hopping on those bikes. So that's going to wrap it up for now, but before we go, take a look at this new beanie I've got here from 215 Moto. They sent this out to me. This is an awesome looking beanie, super warm and comfy in the winter so far. Of course, make sure you go check them out. They've got the hoodies, the t-shirts, the hats, socks, long sleeves, sweatshirts, all that good stuff. Go hit them up, shoot them a message on Instagram, tell them you heard about them from a Moto Jawn video. Maybe they'll hook you up with a sweet discount on some of that cool apparel. We'll ship that out to you anywhere you are. And of course, as always, make sure you ride safe out there, guys. Make it a good one. It's the Moto Jawn. We'll see y'all on down the road. Peace.